The mid-air collision between a U.S. spy drone and a Russian fighter jet in international airspace prompted a rare direct call between military leaders in Washington and Moscow.
I just got off the phone with my Russian counterpart, Minister Shoigu.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Wednesday said he'd spoken with Russia's defense minister about the incident where a Russian Su-27 aircraft the day before intercepted, struck, and damaged the propeller of an American MQ-9 Reaper drone, forcing operators to crash it into the waters of the Black Sea.
And the United States will continue to fly and to operate wherever international law allows. And it is incumbent upon Russia to operate its military aircraft in a safe and professional manner.
U.S. officials said 2 Russian jets first harried and dumped fuel on the unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV, before the collision. U.S. General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said it was not yet clear whether the crash was intentional or accidental.
Was it intentional or not? Don't know yet. We know that the intercept was intentional. We know that the aggressive behavior was intentional. We also know it was very unprofessional and very unsafe. The actual contact of the fixed-wing Russian fighter with our UAV, the physical contact of those two, not sure yet. That remains to be seen.
Milley said the Pentagon had video evidence of the encounter and would consider declassifying parts of it. But Russia's defense ministry claimed the American drone was heading toward Russian-held territory and said there was no collision, asserting the MQ-9 crashed all on its own. The downing of the drone marks the first such incident since Russian forces invaded Ukraine over a year ago, a conflict that has seen a steadily increasing amount of U.S. weaponry, operated mostly by Ukrainians, clashing with Russian armaments.
We've been waiting for this sort of thing to happen for some time. It's surprising it hasn't already happened.
Professor Michael Clark is the former Director General of the Royal United Services Institute in London.
The United States have been flying drones in open airspace across the Black Sea, as they're perfectly legally entitled to do. The Russians have been trying to buzz them and disrupt them for months. It was only a matter of time.
Despite Russian denials, Clark told Reuters he believed the collision was real, if unintended.
This almost certainly, I'm 99% certain, was an accident, pilot error. I mean, the Su-27 pilot who can deliberately and safely fly his plane into the propeller of a Reaper drone hasn't yet been born. So I'm sure it's an accident, and that pilot's very lucky.
Russia said it would try to recover the drone wreckage from the sea. General Milley said the waters where the MQ-9 splashed down were 4,000 to 5,000 feet deep, making any recovery attempt difficult. He added that measures were taken before the crash to ensure no sensitive information could be gleaned from the wreckage.
Well, good evening, everyone. The incident is being investigated, and we'll look to that investigation to draw any conclusions about what the intent might have been, what the actions were, and of course, we'll be in close coordination with allies and partners at the conclusion of the investigation. I can't speak at this point to motive or to intent, but what I can say very clearly is this was a reckless and unsafe action. But we'll let the investigation proceed.
Our military gave an assessment. This assessment was reproduced by our ambassador in Washington, Angeli Antonov, who outlined, including to journalists, our assessments, our information, and how we regard this from the point of view of global security.
Он был приглашен в Госдепартамент, где ему были предъявлены совершенно необоснованные претензии.
He was invited to the State Department, where he was presented with completely unfounded claims about the violation of the freedom of aeronautics.
Объединенного комитета начальника штабов заявляли, что США продолжат и впредь.
You have heard representatives of the Pentagon and the Joint Chief of Staff say that the United States will continue to fly wherever it pleases in accordance with international law.
Самый статус, что и пространство над Черным морем. Но они игнорируют полностью тот факт, что после начала.
But if you follow this logic, then the space around the United States has the same status as the space over the Black Sea. But they completely ignore the fact that after the start of a special military operation, our military declared the relevant areas of the Black Sea adjacent to the coast in certain places to have a limited status for use by any aircraft. And such defiant ignorance of this objective fact suggests that the American side is constantly trying to look for some kind of provocation to escalate its confrontation approaches.
Американская сторона пытается постоянно искать какие-то провокации для нагнетания конфронтационных своих подходов. Это плохо, потому что
This is bad because they have constantly declared that they are a responsible power interested in strategic stability. Incidentally, Secretary Blinken also told me during our meeting in India, but their words are at odds with their deeds.
Для глобальной безопасности это что
для
такие?
безопасности любые инциденты.
For global security, any incidents that provoke clashes between two great powers, two nuclear powers, the largest in the world, always pose very serious risk. They cannot understand this.
Всегда таят очень серьезные риски. Они этого не могут не понимать.
I would like to ask your insights on this assessment.
It's probably about maybe 4,000 or 5,000 feet of water, something like that. So any recovery operation is very difficult at that depth by anyone. That's the first point. Secondly is, true, we don't have any ships there, but we do have a lot of allies and friends in the area.
Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. I have two questions.
We'll work through recovery operations. That's U.S. property, and we'll leave it at that at this point. But it probably broke up. There's probably not a lot to recover, frankly. As far as the loss of anything of sensitive intelligence, etc., as normal, we would take, and we did, take mitigating measures. So we are quite confident that whatever was of value is no longer of value.
In the morning of 14 March this year, in the waters of the Black Sea near the Crimean Peninsula, the airspace control of the Russian aerospace forces registered the flight of the American MQ-9 unmanned aircraft in the direction of the state border of the Russian Federation. The flight of the unmanned aircraft was carried out with the transponders turned off, violating the boundaries of the area of the temporary regime for the use of airspace, established for the purpose of conducting a special military operation, communicated to all users of international airspace and published in accordance with international standards.
В соответствии с международными нормами. С целью идентификации нарушителя в воздух были подняты истребители из состава...
In order to identify the violator, fighters of the Air Defense Forces on duty were raised into the air. As a result of sharp maneuver around 9:30, the MQ-9 drone went into unguided flight with a loss of altitude and crashed into the water. I want to emphasize that the Russian fighters didn't use their weapons, didn't come into contact with the unmanned aerial vehicle, and they safely returned to their base.
...контакт не вступали и благополучно вернулись на аэродром базирования.
Как вы считаете, есть вероятность, возможности у нас отыскать останки этого американского беспилотника и изучить их?
Вы знаете, я не знаю, сумеем мы достать.
I don't know if we can recover them or not, but we will certainly have to do that and we will deal with it. I certainly hope for success. This is the first and the second about this drone. The Americans keep saying that they are not participating in hostilities. This is another confirmation that they are directly involved in these events in the war.
Что они непосредственно участвуют в этих мероприятиях, в войне.
Что мы можем им противопоставить?
Well, how we are already counteracting, we must defend our independence and sovereignty. The president has just spoken about it.
А вот эта история с беспилотником, насколько активно вообще американцы проводят разведку вот в этом регионе?
Очень активно.
Actively, very actively, using all means of both space and radio reconnaissance.
Мы как этому противодействуем? Вот мы увидели вчерашний пример, а как еще?
Ну, мы довольно подробно.
Well, we know and understand in some detail what goals the Americans have in connection with the intelligence activities, the use of technical means, and we try to identify those objects that are of the greatest interest to them, the objects of the territories.
Объекты, которые для них представляют наибольший интерес. Объекты территории.